NNPC, like Total, like ExxonMobil, like Shell, operating in the oil industry cannot announce increases in the prices of petroleum products. That duty is vested in the government. So, and that is what I mean. There is a judgment of the court, Federal High Court, which has not been set aside. The case of Bamidele Anturu and the Minister of Petroleum Resources. This judgment was delivered in the Federal High Court in Abuja here by Justice Adamu Bello, now retired, to the effect that nobody has the right to fix the prices of petroleum products other than the government. Because you have the Price Control Act. And at that time, the Petroleum Act. Now, FEMI Act. So you have the NNPC. Where have you got the powers to fix the prices of petroleum products or the price of petrol this time around? From 185 or thereabout to 540. How? So, and the clarification is important.
Yesterday on the program, we had the group CEO of the NNPC Limited, and this question was thrown at him, and I did ask him, remember asking him, that are you now the regulator and the operator in this sense? Because now it's totally deregulated if subsidy is gone. And he said they are not the ones who change the price.
Who did?
He said it's the market forces.
No, the invisible market forces cannot, under the Nigerian Constitution and under the PIA, fix the price of petroleum.
What agency of government is levied with that responsibility, Mr. Falana?
Under the current situation which we have found ourselves, since ministers have not been appointed, right? The president is running the country. Only the president can so decide for now
The price.
So because you have the Price Control Act, you have the PIA Act, right? There is no provision in our law for market forces to determine the prices of any products in the market.
I wanted to actually just see if I can read through what the NNPC said in their statement.
They issue a statement? Yes.
They issued a statement.
Yes.
And in that
Statement
moment, if we can bring back that, in the conversation that we had with him, he said, going forward, that the prices are going to be determined by market forces. What do you make of that scenario? You agree with the issue of the market forces?
No, the NNPC Limited sealed the statement whereby it fixed the prices of petroleum products. I mean, petrol in Lagos, in Abuja, in the north. Right? Now, if I understand the GMD, he was saying that in futuro, market forces will fix the price. But for now, NNPC Limited fixed the price.
He said the price list that went viral, that went around, were leaked internal documents of the NNPC that NNPC did not fix it. Let me read through the statement of the NNPC. NNPC said in the statement, adjustment in pump price of PMS.
Yes.
It says, NNPC Limited wishes to inform our esteemed customers that we have adjusted our pump price of PMS across our retail outlets in line with the current market realities as we strive to provide you the quality service we are known for. It is pertinent to note that prices will continue to fluctuate to reflect the market dynamics. We assure you that NNPC Limited is committed to ensuring ceaseless supply of product. The company sincerely regrets any inconvenience this development might have caused. We greatly appreciate your continued patronage, support, and understanding through through this time of change and growth. Signed, Garabadin Mohana, Chief Corporate Communications Officer, NNPC Limited. That is what the NNPC is.
And it's gone viral. And that is the basis. Oh yeah, and that is the basis of the, prices we are witnessing.
Could it be because they are the sole importer of refined products?
We have always condemned the position of the sole importer because you do not allow for competition. Whereas you may want to bring your products from Europe or America, I may prefer to go to the Middle East. There was a time the government was importing from all over the place. And I said, no. Cote d'Ivoire has a functional refinery. So why don't you refine from that country? We now refine about 60,000 barrels a day. You know what the current number is. We even go to Niger, right, to refine. Because for 30 years, shamefully, this country is the only oil producing country in the world that imports petroleum products. Only one.
Even with 4 refineries that are not working.
Yeah. These guys collapse them. You have an incompetent and a reckless ruling class.
You think it's intentional for the refineries not to be working?
Oh yes, because between 1993 and 2016, the government spent $6 billion, $6.025 billion on turning around maintenance of the refinery. At the end of the day, the government left them at a comatose stage. And when President Buhari came on board, as a former minister, because he had promised, as a former minister of petroleum resources, I'm going to fix the refinery. So Labour reminded him in 2015, fix the refinery. Oh, but what do you call it? Neoliberal forces in the government discourage the government. Oh, government has no business in business. Let private people do so. But the government was not reminded that licenses issued by the Obasanjo regime for establishing refineries were simply dumped by those who got them. Unfortunately, the same government was now persuaded as the Buhari regime to invest through the NNPC $2.7 billion in the Dangote refinery. Going to be giving, supplying that refinery 300,000 barrels of crude oil per day. Those who say government has no business in business. It was at that stage, President Buhari, as Minister of Petroleum Resources, why are we doing this? Why are we not fixing our own refineries? It was at that stage, almost belatedly, that the government approved that Port Harcourt refineries, two of them, be fixed with the sum of $1.5 billion. Warri and Kaduna be fixed with the sum of $1.4 billion. So, in addition to our investment in Dangote refinery, you're also talking of $2.9 billion to fix the 4 daily refineries of the country. Now, nobody is asking the question, when will the repairs be completed?
They said Port Harcourt will be over it should be functional by December. That's the latest we heard.
Yeah, what of Kaduna? And when will Dangote refinery become functional? So that we can look at all the circumstances in which we have found ourselves and then take the best decision.
So, FALANA, if you look at the statement of the NNPC, it doesn't really suggest that there is a fixed price.
No.
It just said that they wanted to adjust and informing the public.
No. What they are simply saying is that we want to sell at an international price, which is being circulated now to over around $1 per liter. And I've asked myself, right, Where has 540 naira come from? If, according to the central bank, we have not further devalued the naira, so the official rate is 451 naira to the dollar. So if you want to sell at an international price, you are internationalizing the price. Why are you not talking of 451 naira? And in any case, as I have said, and for me, I think the ultimatum given by the NLC provides the government an opportunity to go back to the drawing table and clear some of the confusion in the air. Whereas the president in his inaugural speech simply announced that fuel subsidy has been eradicated by the previous regime. When suppliers began to sell at the prices went to the roof, were then told no. We still have arrangement to have subsidy on till the end of June. Now, if those who were supplied fuel by NNPC Limited at the old price are now profiteering and unleashing economic pain on Nigerians, and nobody is checking them. So why are you not selling?
Let's look at these issues one after the other.
At
now, the issue of subsidy, it looks to me that there is a popular, I believe, amongst Nigerians that it is an evil that we cannot allow for too long a time. Do you agree that subsidy is an evil within the marketplace that should be eradicated?
Sure. Subsidy is the failure and what the incompetence of the Nigerian neo-colonial state to make the refineries functional. And when they then embark on importing petroleum products, we want this country will be grounded the way you guys are going. Again, figures were flying to the extent that the immediate past controller general of custom, went to the National Assembly to challenge NNPC, to challenge DPR. Your figures are fake. The immediate past Minister of State in the Ministry of Petroleum Resources, said the importation agenda is a criminal enterprise. So, what are you talking about subsidy? You think we're subsidizing smugglers? No functional state can come out publicly that smugglers have taken over our country. Or you say oil thieves are operating without check. No state, any modern state cannot say that. And then what do? Let us punish them. For me. And I think that came out in the discussions, the NLC meeting. Right? This is not a question we not go create. It's not a we not go create agenda. We must now look at the economy holistically and challenge the reckless dollarization of the economy. Why must I be looking for dollars in my country? Why should some schools be collecting dollars as fees? School fees. Rents, they collected in dollars. Some fees are paid in dollars for professionals.
By the CBN Act, that is illegal.
No, illegal. Section 20. The legal tender in Nigeria shall be naira and copper. It's illegal. It's a criminal offense.
No transaction must be made or should be made in any currency other than naira.
That's the law. They haven't amended the law. But these guys have ruined the economy by spending dollars so irresponsibly.
Mr. Falana, if the NLC go ahead, if the federal government says it won't, well, the issue of subsidy must go, and it has to go.
You see,
just a moment, sir. If they say that the subsidy must go, and the NLC goes ahead, isn't it causing some kind of anarchy for a government that is just going to be about 2 weeks old.
Sure. For me, when workers issue an ultimatum, workers issue an ultimatum in Nigeria and wherever, it is an invitation to the government to review its position. And the government this time around, frankly speaking, will have to look at the totality of the economy. If we are talking of subsidy, what you call fuel subsidy is an infinitesimal aspect of subsidies in the country. The rich, the comprador bourgeoisie, people who call captains of industry, are subsidized by the government beyond what you are calling for a subsidy. What are you talking about? Between 2016 and 2022, the Buhari regime granted duty waivers to the tune of 16 trillion naira. You can Google. You can find it 16 trillion naira of people brought goods to the country without paying import duty to the detriment of the economy. In December 19, 2018, the then Director of Budget, Mr. Bernard Kagwez, addressed CEOs of government enterprises and told them, you guys have refused to remit 10 trillion naira to the Federation account. I can go on and on and on. We have just filed a case against the Emefiele Central Bank, where the guy sold a bank for 50 billion naira. Avon revitalized that bank with the sum of 1.3 trillion naira. So, 380 people in this country, according to AMCON, are owing 5.4 trillion naira because the banks were going to collapse in 2008. The central bank gave trillions to the bank. Now, those who took toxic loans were going to threaten the economy, and that was how AMCON was set up, Asset Management Corporation of Nigeria, to buy off their debts. What type of subsidy is greater than that? So, I can go on and on and on. So, in the interest of the country, let us look at the economy.
I'm looking at the implication of the threat of the NLC.
Let me tell you.
Is it not too early in the life of this government?
You see, again I've said it. Government has begun discussions in Nigerian Republic, which perhaps should have preceded the announcement. But it's a new government, and I expect, as a new government, to take advantage of the opportunities that exist. I tell you what, Chef, there's a group of countries now fighting the dominance of the dollars in the economy. The dollar in the economy. We call those countries BRICS. Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Nigeria is missing. And they are currently trading among themselves in their own local currencies. And I have suggested this publicly. Kenya was spending $500 million per month to import petroleum products. The leadership of Kenya met with the leadership of Saudi Arabia. We are unable to mobilize dollars. Can we have an arrangement? So, Saudi Arabia agreed we shall be supplying you petroleum products. But you pay us in shillings. China 5 years ago entered into a currency swap agreement with Nigeria. All Nigerians who are buying goods in China pay Naira. For our own business here, pay yuan. The IMF did not allow that agreement. So for me, this government has an opportunity to look at the economy holistically. Look at what is going on with the demand, the struggle for a new international economic order, and fit in
On a final note, Mr. Falana, so the question, the bigger picture we're looking at here is there is already Nigerians who are hurt and pained in the manner in which this policy has come and affected their lives because of the price hike in the price of petrol has affected transportation and immediate effect on the price of commodities, food. Now, you're looking at a situation where NLC is planning a nationwide strike and protest. That will also have effect on the economy. For sure. I mean, and that's why the government was avoiding it. But if the government is already meeting the NLC. So the question is that one will wonder if there is other softer ways in addressing it. On the final note, Mr. Farah. No, for me, just 60 seconds. Government, as I said, we have to look all options on the table. One of which is the Lagos State government with Oando. I've just entered into an agreement with the Chinese company to bring electric buses to Lagos. Some of the buses have arrived. This government, the Buhari regime, this APC regime, in 2020, January 2020, announced that we are going to migrate CNG to CNG. And the central bank, they are marked 250 billion naira to encourage companies that were going to promote that migration. So for me, these are the options on ground. Of course, we can say, oh, why can we continue to waste $10 billion according to them? Figures are also questionable. We can then look at alternatives to PMS so that the poor are not further subjected to excruciating pain. Mr. Falana, so you saying that it is illegal, the hike in the price? Oh yes. And the implication is that anybody selling above 185 is illegal. Of course. Are you planning to go to court on that? Well, the NLC has given some instructions, but I won't give you the details for now. Mr. Femi Falana, rights activist and senior advocate of Nigeria, thanks so much indeed for your time. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Thank you, my pleasure. We take a break, and when we come back, attention will be yet another thing that President Bola Tinubu must also be very careful about, and it's about security. Before he says or does anything, there are things that he needs to do. My next guest will be giving insight on that. Don't listen to me.
International Hospital opened its doors in October 2021. The mission of the hospital is to reverse medical tourism. take particular care here, the Duchess, to bring together a combination of the brightest and the best locally, as well as Nigerians in the diaspora who are interested in returning to bring a very good word for the benefit of our patients here in this country.
The good thing is that we have all international expertise here, all international facilities here, international people working here. Everything is coming together in a space which was considered not great in terms of the availability of healthcare.
Access Bank, of course, has been able to provide us with a robust range of products and services that has enabled us to deliver that standard and quality of healthcare that is integral to our mission as an organization.
My people, you know, say election don't finish now. You don't elect president, elect governor, National Assembly members, State of Assembly members. But Matasi, they tribunal. Well, we have to move forward. First of all, the person when you send go office, you like say you send a message. Suppose they check upon them, suppose they call them. You suppose they ask them the money we have put for your hand. How you take the manager? Employment, opportunities where you promise people manifesto. You go do them, I think you don't do them. Now here, budget's gonna make a simple for you. If you track government budget, how government explain money for your area for budget.org. We even fit track public projects, all the roads, the schools, the hospitals for your area, tracker.ng. We even fit on allocation for your state, for your local government, me.budget.org. Now, the matter in your hand. Person when you sell go office, you supposed to make sure say they work for you. This message now from budget.
The acting national chairman of the People's Democratic Party, His Excellency Ambassador Buma Iliadamagu, on behalf of the National Working Committee, cordially invites all former presidents and former vice presidents elected on the platform of the PDP, all PDP governors, all PDP National Assembly members select, chairman, secretary, and 6 zonal representatives of the BOT, National Working Committee members, former presiding officers in the National Assembly, chairman and secretary of PDP Ministers Forum, chairman and secretary of former PDP Governors Forum, chairman and secretary of State Chairman Forum, and 1 representative per zone, 6 national ex-official representatives, to a special retreat for PDP elected officials, holding on Saturday, 3rd of June 2023, and the venue is at the Old Banquet Hall, State Government House, Bauchi. Time is 11 a.m. PDP, power to the people. Signed, Honorable Debo Ulubuakwe, National Publicity Secretary. Announcer.
Welcome back. President Bola Tinubu yesterday with service chiefs for the very first time since his assumption into office, was demanding the security agencies to strengthen coordination and not work at cross purposes. At the end of that meeting, the president disclosed his own philosophy towards dealing with security issues, which is the adoption of contemporary security measures to advance the country's security functions. Take a listen to the summary of what was discussed from the NSA.
He has made it very, very clear that all the security agencies must comply with the demands of coordination, with the demands of frequent consultations, and also timely reports which must be acted on. He's going to embark on a lot of reforms in terms of our security architecture. Is going to take a closer look at our misfortunes in the maritime domain, focusing particularly on the issues of oil theft. That he is not going to tolerate. Wherever the problem is coming from, it must be crushed as soon as possible. He's already mandated the security agencies to come up with a blueprint.
Thank you so much, everyone. You heard the NSA. Let's get some perspectives to these, everyone. I'm being joined by Mr. Dr. Kabiru Adamu. He's a security consultant and CEO of Beacon Consulting. Thank you so much indeed for your time tonight.
My pleasure.
President Tinubu is not a general, but it looks to me that he's spoken like one in the area. Crush, deal, coordinate. Those are words that will look like someone who understands the dynamics of security. What are your impressions of his very first outing with the service chiefs?
Given the background of what he has released, manifesto, which is the renewed hope, inside which he listed 7 elements, we call them agenda, and then given the speech that the president gave, his inaugural statement, where he listed security to be primary importance and listed a couple of I think one can conclusively say he is actually walking talk. Everything the National Security Advisor just mentioned are things that were contained in that manifesto and that were part of the statement he made when he told Nigerians that he was going to prioritize security. So to that extent, one is happy to hear that. What I think remains is the methodology. It is easy to make such statements, but it will be very important that, as an example, these are the methodologies that I intend to achieve all of these objectives. So it will be very important in the coming days to have a sense of several things. Those that would drive the leadership of the security organizations, issues that prevented the immediate past administration from achieving some of the set objectives, because let's not forget, security was the primary component of the focus areas for the immediate past administration. So it will be very interesting over this period to listen to.
It's interesting that the old guard are still on hand. In fact, the Minister of Defense was still on parade. The National Security Advisor under President Buhari is still on guard and went there for that meeting. So he's using the same structure as President Buhari is using as of now. But it does look like he mentioned something very critical, which has been somewhat a perennial problem of security in Nigeria, which is coordination. How much of a problem is that? And from the angle he's coming from, in saying that there must be coordination, from what you understand, what insight can you give us on that?
So if you look at the national security structure, it is quite interesting that to achieve coordination with the existing national security architecture will be a little bit difficult. And so the president is desirous of achieving coordination, but I think what is even more important is to look at that structure and identify the challenges to the coordination within that structure. So as an example, we have, at the last count, I think about 8 or 9 different organizations within the national security structure that have coordinating elements. The one that is recognized by virtually everyone is the Office of the National Security Advisor. Now that office is the coordinating element within the national security structure. Well, aside from that office, you have several ministers that also have that coordinating element. You mentioned the Minister of Defense, you have the Minister of Interior, you have the Minister of Police Affairs, and then...
Sorry, I like my producer to put up that image of what Mr. Kabir Adamu has tried to draw up in a diagram, so our viewers can have an understanding of how this structure works. That's exactly what you're making reference to. Please go ahead.
Exactly. So then you also have the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, and to an extent the Chief.
So he's also involved in the coordination of security.
Exactly. He calls for the meetings because we also need to talk about the roles of the consuls. There are several consuls that have responsibility for security: the National Defense Council, the National Security Council, National Police Council, and then to an extent, in fact, in this country at the point, the National Economic Council decided on an issue that affected security. Remember, during the NSAS, it was the National Economic Council that made that decision. I'm not sure how and why, but then it did that. So to what extent, for instance, do these councils also contribute to security? The point I'm trying to make is that there are structures that have been made available under the Constitution to provide for security. Now, to what extent are we actually following those provisions? And that now makes the question of coordination extremely difficult. If we pick one element of security, which is policing, it would surprise you and of course most of our viewers to discover that several policing agencies are spread across different ministries. If you use the police itself under the Ministry of Police, but then to an extent the EFCC that has a responsibility is under the presidency, or to an extent Ministry of Justice. And then there are several others, NDLEA, that I'm not sure where NDLEA is. I think it's under the Ministry of the Presidency at some point. So in that convoluted environment, it makes coordination extremely difficult. So we need to look at that structure, reduce this convoluted.
Would you say that we should break all of this down and have a unified, I mean, what works in the United States, for example, after the 9/11? There seems to be a house cleaning of some sort in the United States after that terror attack happened.
First off, there was, call it an audit to identify what was the challenges. First off, there was no sharing of intelligence among the several organizations. They are operating in silos. So they addressed that by creating a central pool, an intelligence fusion pool. I think we're also discussing that at that moment. But apart from that, there were also gaps that were identified. Do we have gaps at the moment? We do have gaps. Between the federal and state governments, there are huge gaps.
If the DSS can go and occupy the EFCC office saying that that is their own office, that is more than a gap. That is more like a gaffe.
Well, yeah, but I mean that there are several ramifications of that.
But the question is that these are federal government entities. These are somewhat kind of security agencies. If there are problems, it doesn't have to come into the public domain if resolving these kind of issues. And this is the issues that people say, these are sister agencies in any case.
I'll be interested as an example, the supervisory bodies for these organizations, what actions have they taken? Make sure, for instance, it could be just a query. There are leadership positions at the state level for these organizations. At the last count, we were told that the matter was even in court. So if the matter was in court, why should they act in the manner that they acted? And then have we taken any corrective actions in terms of querying the individuals that were concerned? And then even if, for instance, that goes beyond that, the National Assembly, which has a responsibility for oversight function. So Shehu, the point I'm making is that there are provisions within our constitution for dealing with virtually everything. And if you were able to put up that structure, you would have seen that the structure allows for coordination if only we're going to follow the structure. However, the challenge remains that even at the coordination element, there are different levels, and that we need to also look at the mandate for each of those levels. Part of the discussion under the President Buhari administration is the role of the Office of the National Security Advisor. Clearly, the Constitution says the role of that office is advisory. But there's an argument by some people that that office has assumed operational powers, as an example. So when, for instance, the counter-terrorism unit is placed under that office, the commission for mopping up small lies and light weapons is placed under that office. Some elements within the national security structure are a little bit uncomfortable about that, because those are operational powers that office is assuming when its mandate is clearly advisory. So these are the things.
So there are those who argue that that office, for example, has been manned sometimes by the military. And some of our problems internally and locally are more or less policing. And there are those who have argued, that those who are of the school of thought, that the NLC office should be someone from the intelligence and the policing circle. What are your views on that?
So if you look at the structure that I put up, the military only occupies at best 5 out of about 29 of those several structures. The point I'm trying to make is that the entire security paradigm, the security sector, defense, yes, is important, but it is a minor part of the security architecture. And in our own case, our challenges are internal security matters. So the best suited persons to address those internal security matters are persons who understand internal security.
Instead of policing and civil engagement.
Exactly. And that either falls in the realm of the police or the intelligence organizations. No doubt the military is absolutely required. It's important. It's a critical component of that national security architecture.
But those who are, I've heard some experts, apologies, I've heard some experts say, look, we cannot, that the military are trained to use force. And at the moment, Nigeria is not facing any imminent threat to our external or to our territorial, the integrity of the territory of Nigeria. And as such, our major problem internal squabbles within one ethnic farmer, herders, clash. These are something that you can actually handle without actually shooting one bullet. And so it needs a lot of research and application of some civil engagement.
Definitely, and if you notice, of recent politicians have brought in non-kinetic warfare, and that's what they are actually speaking about. There is a realization, even among the political class, that this non-kinetic or soft power is actually required. But I don't want, to leave here with the impression that kinetic power is not required. It is needed, because the kind of threats we face, the nature of the weaponry that the threat elements are using are military-grade weapons. When we have threat elements that are carrying, surface to air, RPGs and others, then we really need military capacity. But the point is that military should be part of a national security arrangement. You look at that national security arrangement, the military represents only, like I said, 4 out of about 29. And so the coordinating element left, if I would advise, I would say it's best suited for an internal security expertise that understands internal security, that is able to use soft power to address grievances and the other root causes that lead to security. Intelligence, as an example, it's vital and absolutely important to addressing national security challenges.
And so there are those who say that if the president needs to get things right, the kind of person that he appoints, he's made the first few appointments there, the SGF, and the issue of regional concentration also was put in place. The North Central, the agitation, president from Southwest, the vice president from the Northeast. Now we have a North Central person as the SGF. And the economy and the security, it cannot afford to play politics with it. It has to use professionals.
I agree totally. Professionals who understand the dynamics that drive insecurity in Nigeria. As an example, the twin issues of ethnicity and religion, and then the several other drivers of insecurity, the socio-economic challenges, climate change, and the lack of adaptability. And frankly, yes, we have a crop of military officers that are well trained. And frankly, that establishment represents probably one of the most elitist organizations within the country. But are they suited for internal security issues? I don't think so. Do they have a role to play within that? Yes, they do have a role to play. And frankly, we've tried them for how many years now? The last few appointments in the Office of the National Security Advisor have all been military. And look at where we are today. So why don't we look at something else? And then ensure for it they are carried along and they have a place. But then let's give the other expertise a chance to play. So yes, I agree totally that it's time perhaps that we look at either from the policing sector or the intelligence sector.
The agitation has been state policing, community policing, and that these are the areas the House of Reps under FEMI came up with the idea and saying that they organized a summit and came forward with the idea that there is a need for a more intelligent manner in which to approach this insecurity in the nation. If President Tinubu is watching right now, in terms of, because appointments is imminent, so if you are going to advise him right now about the kind of NSA he needs to appoint, what would you say to him?
Number one, a professional with both academic and then experience in the area of national security, who understands the requirement of modern security. And data, in this instance, is absolutely important. Not somebody who is not afraid to embrace data, who understands that intelligence in modern security sector is really not about just human intelligence, but also using several components. AI, as an example, is quite prominent at the moment. And number two is the person's ability to manage and understand the diversity that Nigeria represents. And then number three is also the charisma of that individual. We've had in the past persons who occupied that office, because of their charisma, they were able to address and manage security challenges before even the president was involved. So now, and the last one is the ability of that person to coordinate elements within the national security.
Coordination is very key. Thank you so much indeed. I mean, of course, if I've been experiencing a problem and using a similar style, and the problem persists. There's a need to rethink that strategy. Thank you so much, Dr. Kabiru Adamu, for your time tonight. Security consultant.
Thank you for having me.
And the CEO of Beacon Consulting. Thank you so much indeed for your time.
Thank you for having me.
I appreciate it. But that's our show this Friday. I'll see you again on Sunday at 8 p.m.